Hey, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Good to have you here, as always. So tonight, we're talking skinheads, and these skinheads, and trad skinheads, and racist skinheads, and all that kind of stuff. Now, many of you may know, many of you probably don't, but there are many different types of skinheads. Yeah, there's the racist variety, the non-racist variety. There's the sharp skins, there's redskins, there's even gash, gay Aryan skinheads. There's many, many different types of skinheads. But when I was a Hammerskin, I saw a bit of a revival of the traditional skinhead cultures. Now, we referred to them as trad skins or fashion skins. I kind of call them skinhead cosplayers these days, but there are many different groups. But what I'm going to be sharing tonight is about when I first started seeing the revival skinheads and about one of their gigs that we kind of attended and disrupted just a little bit. So let's get into it. Grab yourself your coffee or your popcorn or your soda or whatever. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that's good. And hey, if you want to buy me one of these, it'd be much appreciated. All the links are in the description below. So yeah, skinheads. Skinheads have been around since the 60s, pretty much, in different forms. They were called boot boys, suede heads, and then skinheads, and yeah, blah, blah, blah. Now, racist skinhead movement started in the 80s, in the early 80s in the UK, and it spread throughout the world, and it became the dominant style of skinhead. The racist skinheads are what carried the skinhead name for more than 40 odd years. It's my belief that if it wasn't for the racist skinheads growing as they did, the skinhead culture would have died out completely. It already started in the 80s. Around the mid 2000s, there was actually a bit of a revival of the skinhead culture, the traditional skinhead culture. And for the most part, these guys were just all about the fashion and the music, Oi and stuff like that. Not RAC, because that's racist skinhead music. And that's the thing with these trad skins is they opposed the racist skinheads. They said we weren't real skinheads at all. They were because they followed the spirit of '69 and blah 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 blah. And they wear the Fred Perrys and the Ben Shermans and the Cherry Docks all polished and their jeans turned up and their 1-inch braces and, like I said, skinhead cosplayers. Now, I didn't really know a lot about the skinhead culture. Even, growing up in New Zealand, all I knew of the skinhead movements was the racist skinheads, because that's all that was around at that time. And so I educated myself when I became a Hammerskin. Yeah. I thought, oh, I'm going to know about the history. And quite a few of the guys in the movement did follow a lot of the traditional skinhead cultures. They loved the music, they loved the fashion. So there was a large influence of traditional skinhead culture, even in the racist skinhead movements. Now, these traditional skinheads, yeah, they were a bit uppity, and we didn't like them too much. Every time I had a run-in with one of them or even met one of them, they'd be like looking down on me like I'm some horrible piece of shit. I mean, okay, I was a racist skinhead, but hey, still, we're skinheads, right? But then they started organizing a lot of gigs. They started having, different trad skin gigs around the place. And a couple of punk bands had, become oi bands, just because, there's a bit of a revival. We'll jump on this bandwagon, we'll start having some gigs and everything. And like, cool. We'll go along too then, hey? Yeah, we'll go check these out. Because every one of us had these run-ins with these trad skins. We were getting a bit annoyed with it. We're like, you know what? Fuck you. We are real skinheads. I don't give a fuck what you say. We are. And we're going to come along to your gigs and you can tell us that we're not real skinheads at those, yeah? So one of the first ones we went to was at the Jubilee Hotel in the Valley. And, it was a decent gig, band marching orders was playing and there wasn't a lot going on, we were just, having fun and no real dramas. Actually, the only real drama that any of us had was, my mentor got into it with the dude because my mentor was, the crowd saluting while the band was playing. But we had fun and it was cool. None of these trade skins would come near us, of course. You know, they're like, "Ooh, they're the evil, racist Nazi skinheads. We'll stay away from them, probably because we're too afraid to go and interact with them anyway, or say anything to them while they're in mass." But so that was all cool. But then we found out about another gig, and we thought, right, okay, we're going to go really en masse. We're going to show force. And this was a while later, and this was after I became a Hammerskin. I became full patched. So, right, cool. And we had decent numbers at that stage in Brisbane. I think it was about 10 or 12 of us who went to this gig, and it was going to be held at the Nanda Tavern. Now, Nundah is a bit of a seedy area of Brisbane. It's, over by the water, doesn't have the best reputation. So, perfect place for a skinhead gig, right? So we all arranged to, go there. We all took a few different cars and we all rocked up and, all, congregated out the front. We could hear the band playing already. And we thought, great, let's go in. Let's go show these trad skins who the real skinheads are. So we walked in through the doors. I was the first through the door, pushed the doors open. They swung open. I marched in and there's, the crowd looking at the stage. Stage was over to the right, band was playing. These trad skins and punks are all, like marching, doing their little dance and everything, the two-step and everything. I was like, oh, yeah. And the first guy I see was one of my old mates. Now, a really good old mate, but he'd been put on beat on sight by one of the Hammerskins from Melbourne not too long before this gig. And I was made aware of it because he was a mate of mine. He saw me and went, because I walked in. Now, at this stage, I was 130 kilos. I was a monstrous dude. And I had my Southern Cross Hammerskin t-shirt on, all to see. And I walked in, ready to go. He saw me and walked past him and headed straight for the bar. Didn't even really acknowledge him. When I headed to the bar, it was like the parting of the Red Seas. The crowd just got out of our way. So marched up to the bar, ordered myself a drink. And I had only just got my drink when my prospect came up to me and he's like, bro, oh, mate's getting into it. Now, one of my Hammerskin brothers was already getting into it up at the front by the stage. I was like, okay, here we go. Smashed down my drink, marched over, and here's my bro getting into it with this guy in the band. And I'm like, what's going on? He was surrounded by, quite a few people because he was up the front by himself. My bro, he was, he's a short dude, but he was stocky, but he was fiery. He would fight everyone and everyone. He didn't care. He had gone up to the front of the stage and noticed that the bass player in the band was wearing a Goodnight White Pride t-shirt, with the silhouette of a, Antifa stomping on a skinhead. Now my bro's like, take your fucking shirt off. I rocked over and there's like a few guys standing around my row and I push my way through and I'm like, right, what's up? One of these guys is like, oh, it's a bit early in the night for this. And I'm like, it's never too early, cunt. Let's fucking go. They were just, no, we don't want a part of this. I'm like, hang on. These guys are trad skins. What I know of the old skinheads back in the day is they would knuckle on with anyone. They didn't care. They would fight, all right? Right. Yeah. Okay. So not fully traditional then. We kind of, calm that down a little bit. The bass player actually did take his shirt off and he turned it inside out and put it back on. We kind of, dissipated into the crowd. We mingled and I started scanning the place, seeing what's up, seeing who's around. And there were a lot of these trad skins there. There were a lot. It was probably about 40 or 50 easily, so we were outnumbered, but not that that really mattered. And then I noticed the security, because I am an ex-security guard, so I scanned the room, and saw there were 3 bouncers working that room. I mean, it was only a small crowd, so 3 is all you need. 2 of them were really skinny, young Indian guys. And then there was one older dude, and he was, he was a big, old, fat dude. He probably should have retired from bouncing about 10 years prior to this. And so we started, talking to a few different people, just hanging out with ourselves. Nothing was really going. Everyone, just stayed away from us. A couple of people did actually come and talk to us. And I remember one young guy came over and started talking to me and, asking me about Hammerskins and everything. And, he had a genuine interest, which I thought was cool. But then his mate, is this massive, how do I explain it? If you've seen the movie The Wanderers, the big bald-headed dude, the big scary dude, kind of looked like that. And he just came marching through, you fucking with my mate. And I'm like, I'm fucking talking to him, mate. Calm down. But anyway, so, that was pretty much most of the night. Now, one of the OG Hammerskins from Australia was with us that night, a guy named Matt. Now, he was one of the actual founders of the Hammerskins in Australia. He was retired, but still a Hammerskin for life, essentially. And this bouncer, for some reason, had decided that Matt was the leader, so he started tailing Matt. Every time Matt turned around, this bouncer was like over his shoulder. And Matt started, really pissed off with it. He made, comments about it to me a couple of times. This fucking bouncer. I was like, yeah, no, man, he's fucking, he's tagged you. He thinks you're it. So, he knows he thinks if anything goes down, it's going to be you who starts it, man. Boring. After about, a couple of hours, I just decided I'm going to get out of here. I had work the next day. Like I started early morning on a Sunday. So, I had to get some sleep. And I was like, all right, brothers, I'm out of here. Nothing's really happening here. It's boring. Just before I was about to leave, my old mate, who I'd seen at the start, came up to me. And he's real, gingerly like, hey man, how's it going? I'm like, hey, how are you? Good to see you. And he's like, are we all good? I'm like, yeah, we're all good, man. Like, whatever happened between you and my Hammerskin brother in Melbourne is between you two. That's not a club thing. I'm not going to go and bash you. Yeah, just because he had a fucking beef with you, mate. That's not how I work. Now, the thing is with, this guy, my mate, I've known him for years, and I owed him a lot, so I think he's a good guy. So, hey, shout out to you, Ado. Anyway, so I was like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm going home. Cool. Went home, went to bed, got woken up about 1:30 in the morning, 2 o'clock, whole heap of noise, that, okay, they brought the party back here. Great, I'm not going to be able to get to sleep with this lot, and it was loud, there was about 7 or 8 of them because I got up and went into the lounge because I was actually staying with my Hammerskin brother, the one who started in with the guy from the band. And yeah, they're all like all hyped up and amped up and everything. And I'm like, what's going on, guys? My prospects, because we had a couple of prospects at that time. He turned around, he's like, oh, yeah, we got into it. I'm like, oh, really? You kicked off, did it? He's like, yep. Like about an hour ago, that bouncer that was following Matt around, yeah, Matt kind of just got to the point where he'd had enough. And this bouncer was standing right over Matt's shoulder. Matt turned around and just went, fuck it. I am just punched him right in the face, sent the dude flying. And it was on, apparently, all hell broke loose. There were fights everywhere. Everyone was punching on, but apparently the big dude, from the Wanderers, he, took a flying leap at one of the brothers, like literally leapt at him through the air. The brother sidestepped, and this guy just went sliding across the ground on his face and knocked himself out. Well, that didn't end up being much. They all decided, right, yeah, let's get out of here before, they call the cops. That's Nanda, there are a lot of cops around. I mean, they probably, take ages to get here, but anyway. So they're all like, right, let's go. Let's get out of here. There was no more fighting going on in the bar. It all lasted for a couple of minutes, apparently. But on the way out, yeah, this is, the part of the story which really kind of disgusted me. They're all walking out, and leading the charge is one of the prospects who's a well-known member of a very well-known RAC band in Australia. And they all stopped because there was a homeless Aboriginal woman on the street. And she'd heard the fight, the commotion and everything, and she knew it was skinheads in this gig. They all knew that they were skinheads. They didn't know what kind of skinheads, because to them and everyone else, there was only one type of skinhead, the racist kind of skinhead. And this woman was apparently screaming and yelling at them, and the prospect looked at her, front kicked her in the face, knocked her over, like knocked her out, stepped over, because they were apparently up on the step above her, And he was like, "Come on, brothers, let's go." And they all marched off, jumped in their cars, and took off and all, came back to my bro's place, to tell the story. I heard that and I went, okay, I'm going to bed. Like that's enough for me. I don't really need to hear anymore. These guys were hyping themselves up on war stories all night. Kind of glad that I missed that whole part. As much as I wanted to be a part of something, and be a part of this whole fuck you, Tradskins. Yeah, that I didn't. I'm glad I didn't get to see that. I'm glad I didn't get to be a part of that because that probably would have sat with me still. It still sits with me now. But after that night, we kept it low key. I think we went to maybe one or two, trade gigs. I know we went to one down the Gold Coast a few months later, and they were non-events. We went in, nothing happened, we left. The whole tradskin revival culture at that time, yeah, it was. It didn't really have a lot of growth, and it still doesn't have a lot of growth nowadays. In the same respect, the racist skinhead culture has actually died off. The racist skinhead movements have almost starting to disappear completely. It's no longer cool to be a racist skinhead. Mostly because of, the many years of people knowing skinheads just as racist skinheads. It kind of took a toll on the entire movement, and especially in a lot of countries where, skinheads are banned. Hammerskins are banned in Germany, and it's just no longer safe to be a skinhead. So that has allowed the rise of, traditional skinhead culture, skinhead cosplayers. TikTok is a great example of how many there are out there. What these tradskins have to remember is the racist skinhead movements was actually a pivotal part of the entire skinhead history. It can't be dismissed. To say they weren't real skinheads is just pathetic, because they were. They carried the name skinhead for more than 40 years. They're the ones who kept it alive. Whether it was positive or negative or whatever, they were still real skinheads. So there you go. There's my insights into the whole skinhead history, just a little bit, and our clashes with the trads. If you like this video and you want to see more, there's lots more coming. Don't worry about that. All you're going to do is like this video. It's always a good way to start. Subscribe and hit the little bell to get notified. Make sure you turn on all notifications, and then you'll see videos. You'll know when my videos are coming out. And if you want to support me and support this little channel to grow, there's many different ways you can do it. As I said, you can buy me a coffee. You can donate directly through PayPal, and then I actually have merchandise. Yep, up in the store there. You can go check out all my merchandise that I have available, and also have Patreon, all that good stuff. I even have Discord. So you name it, I've got it for you. But I will see you next week for another awesome video. Stay safe. Peace out. Love and light to you, and oi oi.